Hello, everyone, and welcome to our final presentation on Chapter 23, Protecting the Deployment Pipeline. In this chapter, we'll focus on the security side of DevOps and how to protect our deployment pipeline. We will have an objective focus on how to achieve security and compliance goals in a controlled environment, including the change management and separation of duty. Moving on to the first section, how to integrate security and compliance into change approval processes. Almost any IT organization of any significant size will have an existing change management processes, which are the primary controls to reduce operations and security risks. Compliance manager and security managers place reliance on change management processes for compliance requirements, and they typically require evidence that all changes have been appropriately authorized. If they are constructed correctly so that the deployments are low risk, the majority of our changes won't need to go through a manual change approval process because we will have placed all our reliance on controls such as automated testing and proactive production monitoring. In this step, we will do what is required to ensure that we can successfully integrate security and compliance into any existing change management process. There are three processes for the types of changes defined in ITIL, formerly an acronym for Information Technology Infrastructure Library. It is a set of detailed practices for IT service management that focuses on aligning IT services with the needs of business. They are standard changes, which are lower risk changes that follow an established and approved process, but can be pre-approved. They include monthly updates of application tax tables or country codes, website content and styling changes, and certain types of application or operating system patches that have a well understood impact. The change proposer does not require approval before deploying the change, and change deployments can be completely automated and should be logged so there is traceability. The second is normal changes. They tend to be higher risk than standard changes and require review or approval from the agreed upon change authority. Many organizations inappropriately place the responsibility on the Change Advisory Board, or the CAB, or the Emergency Change Advisory Board, known as ECAB. They might lack the required expertise to understand the full impact of the change, which can lead to long lead times. We will notice this more in large code deployments. Third, we have urgent changes. They are emergency and consequently potentially high-risk changes that must be put into production immediately. We know them as urgent security patches or restoration of services. They often require senior management approval, but allow documentation to be performed after. A key goal of DevOps practices is to streamline our normal change process such that it is also suitable for emergency changes.
So let's go into a little bit more detail on these changes. The smallest one, the lower risk one, or standard changes, is something really minute and that can be tested uh, automatically without the need of any external reviews. And and it's because of these they can be deployed into production without the need for further approval by CAT. And even though that these changes are really small, uh, one thing to assert is that whenever you commit any sort of changes, be it low risk or high risk, it needs to show a history of the changes over a significant period of time, and then also provide a complete list of the production issues during that same period. And if we can show that the high change success rates and low MTTR, then we can agree that we would have a controlled environment, and then this would be defined as sort of a standard change. And it is important to have all visual and stuff recorded whenever these changes are made, so that everyone in the development and the operations teams are aware and are notified in an instant. As long as everybody is on the same page, then there won't be a need of adding similar changes in the future. And and then these can also be automatically linked change request records to the specific items in the work planning tools. And by doing so, it creates the unnecessary need of requesting the same things constantly over and over again. Like they can only do it. You can do it once, and then that's it. There's no further need to make another similar request. And by creating these traceability and context stuff, it should be easy, and then this will this will make um, this should not create any time consuming problems with the engineering teams. And then by that, then the deployment stays fast, reliable, and 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 provides the best quality service to the customers. Now, when you're dealing with higher risks, then these would be considered as normal changes, and then they want to ensure quick deployments, even if it's not, even if the whole process can't be fully automated. But we also want to ensure that any of the submitted change requests are as complete and as accurate as possible. This is something that CAB needs to approve upon before it before this process or this commitment can go any further. And then one of the most key details for normal change is to describe the context of a change. Like it state exactly what it is that changes, and how is it going to affect the entire production process. It the more accurate or detailed the context of this of the change that you describe it is, the the more understandable and easier it is for CAP to approve it. Now, one example of normal changes is with Salesforce.com. It was created in 2000 with the aim of making customer relationship management easily available and deliverable as a service. And then by 2007, the company had over 59,000 enterprise customers, processing hundreds of millions of transactions per day and uh, acquiring an annual revenue of $497 million. However, during that time, their ability to develop and release any new functionality updates to their customers, it grinded to a halt. In 2006, they had four major update releases, but a year later, they were only able to do one, despite having to hire more engineers to try and fill the quota. The problem was that they created too large batch sizes, and and a lot of the normal changes had to be approved so many times that a lot of it could actually be automated. So what they did was that they had to rechange their they changed their system using more of the DevOps principles and practices. And by implementing so, the company in 2013 was able to reduce their deployment lead times from 6 days to 5 minutes. The, as a result of this, they were able to scale their capacity a lot more easier. And then this gave them the opportunity to process over a billion transactions per day, nearly 10 times more than what they were used to. And One of their main themes of the Salesforce transformation was to make the quality engineering everyone's job. This includes everyone that was part of the development, operations, and the infosec. It doesn't matter what you were doing, as long as you make quality like part of your job, then that should make things easier for everyone. And then by doing to do this, they integrated a lot of automated testing into all their stages, and then by also using a continuous integration and deployment process, adding functional testing with their Puppet modules, they were able to update the system on nearly a daily basis. And then with all this extra time, they were able to start doing these routine performances called destructive testing, which is a term used in manufacturing to refer to performing prolonged endurance testing under the most severe operating conditions until the component being tested is destroyed. It's similar to like quality control at a tire manufacturing company where they would have a car just keep on driving and driving and driving until the tires blow out. It's a similar process, only they would they would routinely test their services by throwing high higher loads into their service system until it finally broke, which helped them understand their failures and then make the appropriate corrections. And then in doing so, they were able to have a better quality service with even their normal production loads. So by doing this sort of thing, they have Salesforce has not only integrated their DevOps processes in with the change management process, but they also created further motivations for automation in the change process of their infrastructure.
All right, so now we're going to discuss the benefits of reducing our reliance on separation of duty. The practice of separating duties has been practiced for decades. The reasoning for this is one of the primary controls to reduce risk of fraud or other mistakes in the software development process. In most places, it was required for a developer to submit changes to a code librarian who would review and approve said changes before IT ops bumped the change into production. There are other less conflicting areas where separation of duty is used, such as server admins being unable to delete or modify the logs they can see for the effect of preventing the deletion of evidence of fraud or other things. When production deployments were less frequent, this is a fine way to go about things. However, as the complexity and deployment frequency only increases, this method is becoming quite dated. One large fallout of the separation of duties is the slowdown and reduction in feedback that engineers can receive on their work. Some alternatives we should look into employing in the place of separation of duties includes pair programming, continuous inspection of code check-ins, and code reviews. These can provide reassurance as to our code quality and our work. So now, we'll look at the challenges that exist between IT and audit. DevOps is historically all about bridging the gap between devs and the operations. However, now we need to bridge the gap between auditors and compliance officers as well, which is a much more difficult gap to bridge. Part of the reason for the struggle is to have vastly different knowledge bases and skill sets. For some more examples, we'll take a look at a few case examples to help better get the point across. In the case study about proving compliance in regulated environments, it goes over the difference in the way an auditor would approach a situation as opposed to someone in the DevOps scene. So in this case study, they went about making different controls to cover what the auditors would need. This helps the auditors understand the things that are working and helps them get what they need with minimal misunderstandings. So for the second case study, it covers the importance in telemetry as opposed to code reviews and detecting fraud. They detail a story about a developer planting a backdoor into the code for an ATM machine company. This code put the ATMs into maintenance mode at certain times, which allowed for the removal of cash from the machines. This was detected by the realization of someone at a meeting that the machines were going into maintenance mode at times not scheduled beforehand. This allowed them to quickly solve and mitigate this problem. So then on to the conclusion for this chapter. We talked about the integration of security objectives into the daily work of everyone in the value stream. This will significantly improve the effectiveness of our controls, which will allow us to better prevent security breaches, as well as quicker recovery from them when they do happen. And along with this, we really reduce the work associated with preparing and passing compliance audits. So yeah, thanks for watching.